One moment, Sam. Sorry, I've got to go and find out the value of a plex that I'm interested. Yes, yes, sorry. Talk to you later. Hi, Sam. I'm glad that you called. I would like to know the value of a plex that I'm interested in.
I'm here with my friend Paige Saunders from Montreal, and he is looking at buying a Plex in Montreal with some of his friends.
This is awesome. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world to be friends with someone who has made software for valuing property at the same time as I'm looking at commercial property. So yeah, like show me what you put together. I'm excited.
Great. Okay. What I did was I built out a six-plex for Montreal, kind of a fictitious location.
And we should say that this is a very common form of housing in Montreal. Like there are probably 100,000 units that are similar to this on the market. So really useful to have this model because I'm going to be able to, for any property I find, just change some numbers around, right? And then I'll get, I'll be able to kind of see each one and see if it makes sense and if the numbers work out.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll just like add more apartment units or take them away. You can adjust your prices. So what I have right now is a six-plex. How many units are you looking at here?
Mine is a quintuplex, which is 5 units.
Okay.
So you usually
So
have a ground floor unit that is like almost the family size unit, which has access to the backyard. And that will have like 3 bedrooms, maybe even 4.
okay.
And then the upstairs units will be kind of more 1 bedrooms or even studio size units.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the leasing rules. So this is what happens every time a tenant turns over. So anytime a vacancy comes up, kind of reaches into the bag and uses a leasing rule. Do we have any leases in place? Well, I guess we got
Yeah.
some long-term tenants here.
2173 at this address is would rent for 2,000 a month at market. 25.
Okay. And you'd probably lease that like within a month if it was vacated, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so the plan would be to move into that unit.
Well, we can put, well, let's say it'll take you a month to move in if
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
just to clean it up or whatever. And you're just going to stay there forever, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to stay there for 100 years. So let's say 2A's at 575 a month. 2B's 775. The next is 560.
560 a month.
And then the final is 1,000. And it's occupied by it's occupied by the landlord. That one will be vacant as well. And I would say that 1,000 is indicative of the market rent.
Are you going to kind of increase your rent? I guess like rent goes up what 1.5% or something on average, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think almost every landlord is not getting market rent. Tenants will, in a rent control market like this, cling for dear life to the housing that they can get. So as an example, like I'm just looking here at this unit. Yeah, so this was signed in July 2001. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. So that's 24 years.
yeah. So the rent it was signed at. Oh yeah, so it was in 2001, $345 per month for this unit,
Okay.
and now it is renting for 575, I think, for
Wow.
this
Okay.
unit. So you can see there that's your actual inflation. It's a kind of constant thing with the landlords. It's very regulated, and so they're always like a you know what I mean? Okay, so there's good landlord, there's a good at your job landlord who is like trying to maximize their return,
Right.
and then there's like to a tenant a good landlord, which is like a landlord that wouldn't do that, right? So if you're an effective, good at your job landlord, you're always going to each year be pushing the rent as much as you possibly can. because if you drop the ball in a year, you've lost the increase for that year in
Right. And
perpetuity.
you just miss the compounding on that as well, I guess. So
Exactly.
just,
Yeah, that's good for this guy. I mean,
yeah.
$575. And you do have this thing when you if you go to look at a plex, you can usually kind of talk to the realtor and be like, are any of the tenants interested in moving? I'd be really curious to know, like, basically, how much would it be worth? How much should you pay an existing tenant to vacate their unit if it means the
Right.
difference between $575 and $1,000 a month? Like,
Yeah.
because I've often
Actually,
wondered
we
that.
do that.
Oh yeah.
So excess or deficit rent. So basically the idea is like you have your market rent that's kind of, projected out going forward. And then you're kind of curious, okay, well, there's this gap, right, between the market and what you're actually getting. And then so we'll figure out what that total gap is on the property. And then what we can do is then come up with a value for that gap. And it kind of gives you a sense of like kind of how much you could afford to, or not afford, but how much you could pay for someone to leave and still break out even.
Oh yeah. Okay,
In
that'd be
essence.
great.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's ideally like we're wanting to get our friends in as soon as possible, but and if that all financially makes sense as well, and the tenant is like, yeah, that's a significant amount of money. I'll take that. Then yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I
that's great.
think my guess is it is going to be a really significant amount given the gap already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Uh,
confirms the suspicion I've had for many years that landlords should be just like cutting like tens of thousands of dollars
I think
checks to
so.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if we go into this kind of most detailed report, which is the cash flow statement by usage, we can see kind of what each unit is making. And so what we can do is we can click on this button here, calculate for market. Remember I was telling you we could kind of see the difference between the market and what people are paying.
Yeah.
And so if we turn that into an annual basis, you're kind of 9,000 per year is kind of the rent you're not collecting, or that kind of deficit to market.
And you can see that by unit there as well, right? Like you can see
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
the
So if you said, okay,
2B.
unit 3A
Yeah.
is a deficit of $5,100 a year, you could easily pay 10 times that.
So we're talking about like $30,000, $50,000, like that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's essentially the cap rate. So that cap rate, like it's your income divided by your cap rate gives you a value. So if it's $1,000 and it's a 10% cap rate, so it's 1,000 divided by 10%, that means that's $10,000. You'd be, but in Montreal cap rates are closer to like 6.5%. So it's actually more like, I don't know, 17 times whatever that number is. And then the number keeps on getting bigger.
Yeah. All right, it's great. And Sam is regularly in Montreal as well. So, last year Sam rode the Grand Prix on his bike.
Yeah.
I guess the cool thing with ReturnSuite is like, Sam, you're a real Montreal fan, and you're here quite a few times each year coming over from Ottawa. So if anyone reaches out to you, they're going to be talking to a person who's actually like familiar with the situation in Montreal and a lover of the town. So
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, Paige. This is great.
yeah, no, it's fascinating. Confirmed a suspicion I've long had that these the value of these rents is crazy. So yeah, thanks for confirming that, and I hope that we see each other on the Grand Prix circuit this summer.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I'll drop the property in the sample properties on ReturnSuite, so anybody that's looking at a Plex can go on, play around with it, and if they have any questions, feel free to send me a message. If you have a property you'd like to model out with me, feel free to contact me through either the ReturnSuite website or LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you.